You lived in where?
Lived in LA for like 5 years, then decided to come home.
Nice. That is nice. I have an aunt who works in government, so she lives in DC currently too. So I am familiar at least a little bit with the whole Rosebud City and things like that.
Oh yeah. Because we like connected on like LinkedIn, so I'm sure you saw.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah. No, this isn't about that. We keep the feds out of everything that goes on this radio show. Yeah, so wait. So okay, so you've lived in LA, which is a music industry hub. You've lived in DC, which has its own fantastic music scene. But just tell me a little bit more about like how you got really started into music, just in general.
So in general, I got started in music in high school. A bunch of my friends like used to rap, and it's not it's not really the most interesting story like on the planet, but a bunch of them like used to rap, and then so I was like, well, I can't rap. I should like make beats. So I started out doing that, and then it kind of stuck, and then over the years I got like good at it until I got to a point where it was like, okay, maybe this could go somewhere.
Hmm.
So I moved out to LA. I was a part of this band called Call Me Doctor, which it was actually a metal band, which doesn't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And we like toured for like a couple of years. That was fun until it wasn't.
Right. That's how it always goes. It's all fun and games until all of a sudden you realize it's no longer the fun and games you were promised.
Yeah. And so that kind of came to an end. And so at that point, I was like 24. I'm like, all right, I should probably just go home and figure something else out.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I feel like there's always this pressure, especially in the music industry, to focus on like young talent, young stars, who's up and coming. But there's a lot that can be said for letting talent grow and nurture at its own pace. And do you still believe that you're improving and getting better at your craft with each day? You don't feel like you've missed your shot, as it were?
Not at all. I
Good.
feel like I'm always getting better. I mean, you kind of see how like trends in the like industry work. Like anyone could blow up at any time
Hmm.
for any number of factors.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's yeah, you think you're gonna become TikTok famous? You think you're gonna be the next trend in sound?
I don't know. My manager Ed's been pushing me to create TikTok content. I'm like, dude, It doesn't matter how like old I am, but I cannot get into this.
I will say I it's the thing with TikTok that's always confused me is I feel like there's so much emphasis put on like creators and creative type people to become a TikTok creator. And I think now we're starting to collectively realize like there are people who are good at making content for specific channels. Like
Yes.
Nazariff is a great beat producer. That doesn't mean that his TikToks are going to land 100% of the time. Just as we all see with young Dixie D'Amelio's music career, vice versa, it doesn't go both ways.
Yeah. Well, wow. I had actually forgot all about him. Oof.
I think that it's best for all of us if we just politely acknowledge it and move on. Kind of like a museum docent that's looking on a little suspiciously.
Yeah. That's actually a very good point because I feel like there's like certain like things that are like really small, like especially in like music now. They're like little blips in time, and the amount of attention that it gets lasts for a certain amount of time, and then literally everyone kind of moves on.
Yeah, yeah. There are people who blow up because of trend, and then there are people who set trends. And I only know of like three industry figures maybe that are both, and one of them is Lil Nas X. I feel like
Yeah,
that man has mastered how to set a trend while also accidentally becoming a trend.
yeah, he's actually managed to sustain himself very well. I was
Mhm.
actually impressed. So who's ever behind that a machine, hats off.
Yeah. Hat tip to I think he's signed to Warner Music Group. And maybe I can't remember which of the big three labels he's signed to. But I gotta ask now, how did you come up with your name, your performance name of Nazariff?
Okay, so I used to be called something else, which we're just not going to disclose for my own embarrassment. I was like changing my name, and it was originally going to be spelled the way that it kind of sounds.
Mm-hmm.
So so basically, more or less, what happened was I was like looking to change my name, but then it came up that there's already a band that's from like Israel that's well established that like has the same name. So I kind of changed the spelling to
Mm-hmm.
say riff because that's like a part of music,
Oh
and
yeah.
I just felt like that looked really cool on paper. So over time, it kind of stuck with like the image and everything else, and I don't really have to go into detail.
Yeah, I will say I do have to commend you because it's something that it's memorable because, for most people who, are either trivia nerds or grew up in some sort of Christian church, they obviously know of Nazareth, but by putting your own little, if I may borrow your own term, riff on it, it's memorable and it's catchy, and I think that combined with a lot of your brand imaging, like all the like moody blue and red portraiture that you've got going, it really creates this strong image for people to latch onto. Now, do you think that your like image and name comes across in the music you make, like when you uh well, I'm trying to think of a good example. Like when you hear a name like Jason Aldean, you know that man makes country. Do you think that do you think that Nazareth creates like hip hop electronic bangers?
Yeah, I'd say it's like a weird like cross between like hip hop, like electronic, like maybe little doses like pop here and there.
Hmm. Yeah. Do you have who are some of your influences in that kind of sphere?
In that sphere, I can start from the beginning. I'd say probably the Neptunes, the pop producer Max Martin, the EDM DJ uh, Arl Grime.
Hmm.
So kind of like take those and maybe even I can even say like Hans Zimmer. I'm sure you've heard like a couple of songs that have like a cinematic feel to it.
Yeah. I definitely am hearing that in your music. Speaking of Max Martin, have you listened to that new record from the Weekend yet?
Yeah. So I I don't know how they like managed to like take that sample and flip it. It was like, wow, this is like some like Daft Punk shit.
Yeah. Are you talking about that one City Pop sample?
Yeah, that was
Mhm.
I
That
mean,
that was gnarly. I mean, what I've been on has been Sacrifice has been my early favorite. Just that groove is so gnarly, and that's Swedish
smooth.
House Mafia bringing it through.
Yeah, I was like really surprised when I was reading like the like liner notes. I was like, wait a minute, what?
Mhm. Oh yeah, you're like hello, and for me the entire thing it really just kind of strikes me as like Thriller, but for the modern era. And I don't want to say that to try and put the Weekend in a box, but for me, like the timeless production, just like drenched in that '80s nostalgia, back to front, it reminds me a lot of. Not to mention the Quincy Jones feature.
Yeah, I mean, well, to me it like felt a lot like a sequel to like After Hours, but
Mhm.
it was just like it was really like a sequel where we actually like went somewhere.
Yeah, and apparently he teased today that Dawn FM is the second part of a trilogy. That it's going to be After Hours, Dawn FM, Untitled Third Record.
Okay, well that actually makes a lot of sense because his first trilogy is I'm sure you've heard
Mm-hmm.
for the time when that came out, nobody was doing anything like that. That was even like I was like, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on?
Yeah, yeah. Let's back it up. I didn't know that I was working with George Lucas here.
It's a very good comparison to that production back then, because I don't even think now that anyone's been able to really replicate it.
Yeah, no, it's. I don't know anyone who's really done like a true trilogy in that sense, and both Star Wars and The Weeknd can be described as spacey. So,
Yeah, very much so. I actually have like produced for like other artists that kind of down tempo like 80s sound.
mhm.
Because I've had like people like ask for it, and I know I'm like super into like dark like a synth wave and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah. So, have you talk a little bit more about like how people will typically approach you, saying like, "I really like your stuff." Do they ask for something specific like that '80s thing, or do you have artists that say, "You just be you, and I'll work with it"? How's that creative process look?
So it's usually like half and half. Like half the time like it'll just be stuff that I have like sitting around, and I'll kind of like send it out to people that I have artists and like writers that I've like known for like a long time, and I'll kind of shoot stuff around. And then every so often someone comes like, hey, I kind of want something similar to this, and then I'll hear it and I'm like, all right, we can do something similar, but I'm going to try and put my own spin on it so we're not copy pasting.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. That's so. What's the type of which process do you think is more enjoyable for you? Do you prefer to make stuff that's like within your well established sounds? You're like, I know I can make a heater with this, or do you kind of like the challenge of being bound by, a quote unquote client's external constraints?
Sometimes I actually enjoy the challenge because it allows me to overcome like certain like genre barriers that I haven't broken yet. Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm always trying to like genre blend. I'm not trying to come off corny. It's just kind of my thing.
Mm-hmm.
So like if someone like presents something that I haven't really done yet, like it's actually really exciting. It's like, okay, this is kind of different from what my normal sound is. It might not be like dark ass, maybe it might be like light and airy. I've actually done like a couple of things that are light and airy. Some people just don't know about it.
Nice. Yeah. And what was I going to say based off of that little um, comparison? Oh, it was on the genre blending aspect. And I know that for a lot of producers, it's you spend as much time listening to music and gathering like musical influences as you do creating your own. So, what kind of stuff do you love to listen to versus kind of what's in your rotation right now?
Generally I like generally listen to a lot of like uh hip hop and like top 40 pop, and then I'll kind of like branch out and listen to like some like and maybe like older jazz, or like right now like a lot of city pops in my rotation because I just didn't know that was even a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. How do you typically go about discovering new music? Where do you go to look?
Um, so really I usually go through like usually through friends, or where I first started finding new music was like message boards, which is essentially what Reddit's become. So
Mhm.
I've actually found a lot of new music through a Reddit. Sometimes I use Spotify and SoundCloud. Spotify's algorithm has gotten a lot better for artist discovery.
I've definitely noticed that in my own stuff too. Even though your Spotify Wrapped comes back and deals you an absolute blow, it's like I don't need to be reminded that I listened to Off the Grid 28 times this year. I went on a lot of hard runs. uh, yeah, but I have noticed too that their recommendations are getting a little deeper, a little better at that.
Yeah, because it looks like they're trying to ramp up and stay in competition with the Spotify. And it's funny that you say that because I saw my Spotify Wrapped. I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm posting this.
Yeah, you're like just a little embarrassed.
Yeah, I did that once, and I did that once on my personal Facebook. It was not a good time.
Yeah, I can never share my music stuff to my personal Facebook because I love my family to death, but they just won't really fully get it. They'll be like, "Yeah, great job." I rapped.
Oh yeah, it's like,
It's like, thanks for the congratulations of me listening to 25 hours of the Rocky Four soundtrack.
yeah, definitely good.
So, so kind of just closing things up here. I didn't want this to take over your entire night. I just wanted to pick your brain a little and talk to you. But uh, as your kind of what do you envision as your next steps, both creatively as well as kind of from the business side of things? Because this is a music business show that I host, so I have to do my due diligence.
So for the creative side of things, I I guess I can go ahead and tell you you'll be the first person to know. I've got a I'm actually wrapping up a 5-track EP now. It should be out in March. It's going to be a soft release, no like label strings.
Mhm.
You know, make the sacrifices, and this is also coming from a business perspective. When
Mhm.
when you're doing a self for really, you should understand what this means. You just got to put in certain things.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. I've got a lot of kind of young up and coming artists who are listening to this, so it's reassuring to be hearing like really a lot of other talented young artists doing the self release thing, because it's at this point labels are really just serving as middlemen to snag a little out of your pocket.
Yeah, and with the whole like self release process with DistroKid, symphonic distribution, which I personally use. Um, it's given a lot of artists like opportunities to just kind of put stuff out. And now like the strategy is a little different. It's like, okay, I have to put something out, and I've either got to market it myself, or I've got to find the right team
Hmm.
to market it.
Exactly. Well, Roger, thank you so much for your time. Uh,